work. 250 people is a typical number for quite a large corporate event. You've got a DJ playing in one corner, so straight away you've got problems with being able to be heard. There's a free bar, so people are clearly getting as tanked up on as much alcohol as they can because they want to make sure that they're getting the best of their money's worth, even though they've not paid. The guests are celebrating, they're in high spirits, they're there to be party and to celebrate whatever event it is. So straight away, just think about what that will entail. You're there to entertain. Now imagine that as a scenario. Visualize being dropped into the middle of it. Literally just parachute straight in. What are you going to do? Okay, you're there, your goals there are to entertain the guests and to impress your client. They're the two main goals for close-up mentalism working in these kind of environments. Now, imagine that client tells you when you arrive, oh, we've also got a magician here as well. So we book you and the magician, okay? A finger-flinging nemesis that can make fire appear out of wallets and can make coins penetrate bottles. How are we going to be able to combat or compete with that? Because they don't need to consider things like the music. They can do this thing. It looks good. We can't. So what do? Imagine that the client is walking around the event and she sees a group over there react really big. And there's large cheers, there's gasps, and she looks over and she sees the magician there. Fire comes out of his wallet. People go nuts, and she thinks, yeah, I made a good job. Good choice there, hiring that magician. Wonder where the mentalist is. And she looks. She can't see him. She goes to the bar, can't see him. I told you to avoid the bar, so you're not going to be there. Goes into the toilet, you're not there. She eventually finds you. 15 minutes later, as far away from the PA system as you possibly can, screaming into someone's ear that they're thinking of the word bartender. Okay? We have to address the material that we do to make it visual, okay? You've got to make your job easier in that sense, because visual magic will always be big reactions. Mentalism is visceral, it's different, it's about communication. So it's not the ideal form of entertainment, really, to perform close-up. But by taking elements of that and considering it beforehand, you can kind of optimize your performance at close-up for these sorts of events. So, we talked about the photographers, the wait staff, the distractions, the music, the alcohol. Finally, the last thing that I want to speak about, when I finally get of all the days to have problems with the things, I do apologize. Creating space. This is the last thing that I want to speak about. And what I mean by creating space is that you might turn up to a room that's very, very condensed. There might be 100 people in there. There is a legal limit of how many people can be in any one room, but at the same time, it's not ideal for you to perform. So how can you create space? You'll find that there might be people shoulder to shoulder, and you're sort of stood in the middle and you can't really do things. One of the best tips that I've ever had, what was given to me, is to step back. Okay, so if I'm performing for maybe 3 people in front of me, and I'm aware that there are people to the side, and if I step back, just doing one step creates the space between you and the participants, which then opens up your sort of close-up arena for you to perform. Okay? Eventually, people will notice this space. They will turn to start to watch. And when you do that again, by raising your arms and stepping back again, a second time, you've then created an even bigger circle of space. And at that point, you've got more room to work. Okay, it's a really important point to consider, the amount, how to best use the space to optimize your performance. So, not only can you step back, you create a circle around you. Sometimes, if you grab your participants and bring them into the circle as well, that's another way of creating that focal point, because people will tend to stay where you've put them. On stage, they stay, most people. But close up, because it's very much a mingling kind of environment where people are walking up, they're seeing what's going on. If you establish that space straight away, people will tend to stay and watch. And then any other further people that are sort of joining in will stand and form a crowd around you and start looking over their shoulders, walking around, seeing what's happening. You ever seen a street performer do that? Somebody who's maybe busking on the streets, performing maybe in Covent Garden in London. It's a great place for it. You'll find that a big, wide arc will form around them. We don't need something as big in the close-up, but if we can have a few feet around us, that becomes our space that people will not come into, they will form around it. It's like dropping a stone in the water and it ripples out. You will have this ripple and it will build and build and build. Not to the point where the entire guests at the event will be watching what you're doing, but even if you have 10, 15 people watching at a time, that's what you want. Try to avoid performing 1-to-1, 1-to-3, that kind of thing. You want to build crowds around you for as much time as possible. Just before we start the questions section, is there anything about creating space that people might want to sort of get involved with or share, anything like that? Because it's an unusual thing that I've never read about in terms of performing close-up. Has anyone got anything they want to share at this point?